Hey guys, just a quick update here on the Cessna 310. Got a little bit more work done on it since the last time you've seen it. Might not be able to tell on the camera, but as usual I had issues with paint. Go figure, right? What ended up happening is, if you remember when I painted it, this was all white up here. When I painted all this, this remained all white. Then I needed to mask this area off to paint this black. Well, when I did that, as usual, this is where the problem started. When I went to remove the masking tape after I painted this black, it had started peeling up some of the white paint off the monocoat. So I was pretty frustrated because the turnout looked so frickin' nice. So I started scratching my head, well, what do I do now? Well, all I ended up doing is I cut the covering all the way through. All this blue is still original. This is all the original blue. But then I ended up, I cut the covering, then I just used black monocoat, made a nice clean line up to the nose, and then trimmed this out. And you can probably see it because fluorescent LED lights show every imperfection in color, but you can see where I blended the monocoat into the paint. So from here forward, excuse me, is all completely redone with white monocoat, and this overlaps onto the blue monocoat, which has been painted white. So it's got a little bit of a difference in the tone, but you know what? At this point I'm not worried about it. Once it's out in the sunlight, it'll be less noticeable. And if it becomes a further issue, all I'll do is I'll trim this piece off here all the way around, and I'll recover all that white area back there with white monocoat if it's an issue. So I'm not too worried about it. And look how nice that turned out. You know, and I've said in the past that I'm good at monocoat. I'm good at monocoat. And this is a very interesting shape to cover because it's from here forward it's a constant curve. So this area was all done with an iron, bringing it over to the sides, and then this area up here I kept about this much monocoat hanging off the edge, something I could grab onto and pull while I hit this area with a heat gun and just form the monocoat around, and then trimmed it and use the iron to kind of tack it down. So as long as you know what you're doing, it can look really nice. So what I'm doing right now is getting the windows done. So we got 2 windows here, none there yet. My good buddy Rich Eggleston recommended a different method that I've never done before for putting these windows in. I was just gonna take a piece of the plastic, kind of oversized, and glue it onto the airplane and paint the perimeter of the window white to kind of blend it in a little bit. And he talked me out of that and recommended that I cut the window to fit perfectly inside this area, recess it in about 1/8 of an inch or so, and then using a where are you at? Using the Zap canopy glue, which I have a love-hate relationship with this stuff. Sometimes it works so good, and in other situations it's too runny and it just makes a huge mess, but it's water cleanup, so it's pretty easy, but it's really never let me down. But using that and putting it inside one of these syringes that you can get at the hobby shop, it's actually a hodgepodge of parts here. This is the syringe that you buy. You stick it in there and you suck up your glue. And this is just a tip from Bob Smith, and that clicks on there. And that way you can put a nice thin bead all the way around the window, and when it dries, you can't tell. I mean, it looks like it is physically part of the airplane, so it turned out really nice. So, thanks Rich, that worked out really good. Never done that before using the canopy glue. I've always tried to just use the bottle and just make a huge frickin' mess. So I got a little carried away. This side you really can't tell. The other side there was some wood up here that didn't get covered, and I forgot to paint it because I got too ahead of myself. So when you're looking at the other side, if you look at it from this angle here, you can kind of see some wood color up here. So today I decided to get smart and I painted the insides of all the areas that didn't get any covering put on them before I get these windows installed. So in the meantime, I decided to add this pinstripe here. And when you look at it, you probably can't tell how many pieces of monocoat were used to make that one pinstripe. Normally you'd unroll your 6-foot roll and then just cut one solid pinstripe. Yeah, you can do that, but when I got scraps like this, I'm gonna make sense of it. As I said before, I'm not afraid of seams. They don't bother me as long as you can height them and, you know, make all your lines nice and straight. Seams aren't that big a deal, because if you think of this airplane, the full scale is a metal airplane and covered in metal. So you have panels that cover this airplane. So having lines every now and then kind of gives it that look that it's actually built out of, you know, metal panels. At least that's the excuse I'm using. So all I do is just using a ruler, make some marks, and I actually took 3 of these strips, cut at 3/8 of an inch, to be able to do this one solid pinstripe. But, you know, like I said, if you do it right, it looks good. Now the other side hasn't been done yet. So up here at the nose, you can see I left it kind of flapping in the breeze here because the other piece is going to overlap. Then I'll do what I did here and make the cut so they come to a nice point. So that's why I kind of went a little beyond how far I needed to go. So that'll be nice. Now, one thing when covering with monocoat, it's not a bad idea to have a sock on your iron. It helps prevent from getting scratches in the surface and putting dings into it. You can buy the iron socks. They're like $5 or $6 a piece, but I just use old white t-shirts. Took a little bit of trial and error to figure out what size piece to cut out to be able to pull and wrap it around there, but it's cheap. Well, essentially it's free because the shirt was already paid for and used and worn and was going to go in the garbage. So you can't beat that. I mean, it's free. So that's where we're at so far. I'm going to get the pinstripe put on the other side here pretty soon. And you can probably see pretty clearly on the camera that this black monocoat has seen better days. And there's a reason that I went ahead. Actually, you can see that there's 2 different pieces. This side looks pretty. This side has some nasties in it. Well, because of the whole Habaco going bankrupt and stupid Horizon picking them or buying them out, I'm not a fan of Horizon if you haven't noticed. Monocoat has been pretty scarce for a while. It's supposed to come back. It better, or I'm going to be real pissed. So I had to use some really old covering out of my random box of miscellaneous coverings. And this one had some nasties in it, but what I might do is, because this is supposed to be an anti-glare for the pilot, that's why this is not blue or white, and it's not supposed to be glossy, so that way you don't get, the full-scale pilot wouldn't get glare from the sun blinding him off this paint. So what I might do is mask this off once I'm all done and just go over this with some satin spray clear, and that will pretty much make these little nasty spots disappear. So that's where I'm at. Once I get these windows put in, I'll bring you back and show you what they look like. This window here is going to be done the same as these two. It's going to be recessed inside, but the windscreen is going to wrap over and overhang and get screwed to this post right here, because that'd be a real pain in the butt to get that cut just right to fit inside. So I'm just going to let that overhang get some small button head screws. So that'll look pretty nice once it's done. And I was smart. I kept the old one as a template. Definitely don't want to throw that stuff away. And another thing for monocoat. I've been asked this quite a few times in the past. When you're covering, it is so easy to get smudges, especially when I put this line on there. As I'm covering it, I get a color smudge from the blue that goes onto the white. And what do you do about that? Well, there's the answer right there. Just regular, plain old lighter fluid. Once again, some old t-shirt. Just dump some of it on there. And anywhere you have a smudge, just polish it off. And just like when I cut these pieces out here, I use a Sharpie, just a regular, permanent marker, and I just put a couple dots on the covering so I can line my ruler up and cut it, and just wipe it with that real quick. It takes those Sharpie marks right off there. Good stuff. Now, if you're not using a covering sock, which I usually don't, this project here was actually the first time I've used a covering sock in probably 20 years. I think my dad and I used them every now and then when I was younger, but I never really used them. So if you don't use a sock and you get the color smudges on your iron while it's still hot, you can do the same thing. Pour some lighter fluid onto your little towel, your little shirt towel here, and just clean the bottom of the iron. It doesn't affect the Teflon finish on it, and it takes that color smudge right off there while it's hot, which is the best thing. So I'm going to get some more work done on this. I ordered my cowls. They are going to be here today, and my dad has got the wing completely ready to cover. So as soon as those cowls come in, I'm going to go over there and make sure they fit the nacelles before he does any covering on the wing. Got one engine on the way. Before I bought two of them, I wanted to make sure, absolutely for sure, that I'm going to be satisfied with how one engine's going to fit in the nacelles. I'm not going to tell you what I got yet until I know it's going to work. And as soon as I figure out that they're going to work and get one of them installed and kind of get some more progress done, I'll bring you back. Later.